everyone, welcome to Dandelion Lessons this week, and I have something fun and hopefully helpful planned for today. But first I wanted to talk just for a moment about our watercolor project. And I know it's kind of a silly idea because you may not be watching this video before the watercolor project, but in case you are, I just wanted to talk a little bit about it. So I uploaded a line drawing for you. And this is my drawing on my paper, okay? So this is a simple enough drawing that you could really use a very delicate touch and draw right on your watercolor paper if you're not going to erase too much, okay? If you feel like you're going to erase, then go ahead and use a piece of sketch paper and then do a transfer by using a piece of tracing paper to trace it, and then flip it, trace it again, and then put it on top of your paper and do a rubbing on top, just very gently. Okay, we've talked about that before. If you're at all confused about that, there are many videos on YouTube on how to transfer a drawing to watercolor paper. Okay, there's all different ways to do it. You just want to get a nice drawing in here without too much erasing. Okay, and this is our reference image that I shared. And I just wanted to say, this is a new technique for many people, okay? So we are going to be painting this sort of graduated wash, you know, of the leaf, and then putting the details on the leaf and getting some shape, you know, some form and volume to it. But we're also going to be putting on some water droplets. And if you look in the reference image, there are hundreds of them, okay? And if you are up to it, by all means, go for it, okay? It's perfectly easy enough to do. It just takes a really long time, okay, to get all of those in there. So what I did is I simplified it, and I only put a few on here. And this will teach you the technique, which is actually very simple, okay? But it won't overwhelm you. So you can practice it, and then you can add some more if you want, all right? You don't have to have this many for it to be effective. Okay, so this is about 4 inches long, give or take a ½ inch, you know, not including the stem. Okay, and I'm using Amalfi paper because I love it, just a smooth hot press paper. Cold press paper will work perfectly fine for this too. You just don't want to use a paper that is too heavy in texture because it's just harder to get detail, that's all. Okay, I just wanted to go over that. So today we're going to do sort of a fun thing to help us introduce a sense of play into our work all the time. Okay, so for this project, I thought I would use a student grade watercolor today. And I do this because not all of us have handmade paints. Some of us have student grade paints. And if you don't have student grade paints, or if you do, I mean, I'm going to be using the Arteza 36 watercolors. And it's a really nice tin, set of 36 colors. I will say they are more like an opaque watercolor. They're not as transparent as artist grade paints, but they're fine. They're perfectly fine, and they mix well, and they work just fine. So I'm going to be using these, okay? I also have a set of the Arteza watercolor pencils, and these are fun to use. They are not great. I told them, they sent me these to review, and I told them that I really didn't feel comfortable reviewing them because I didn't think they were that great. And the reason why is that I'm used to artist grade watercolor pencils, and artist grade watercolor pencils, when you use them, they have really rich color and they do dissolve all the way. When you put water on these, they dissolve a little bit, but you can still see the pencil line. Okay, so they're fun to play with. They're great for playing around, and I might use them a little bit on this. I might not. So we'll just see how it goes. But I just wanted to mention that about these because they did send them to me, and I told them, you know, I would only do it if I could do honest reviews, and I was honest with them, and just said I don't want to give them a bad review either, so I'm just not going to do it. Anyhow, so that's what I'm going to be using. I also have a piece of Amalfi paper and just my my scroll mop, okay? And the other thing I have is a dice. So this dice, I actually don't have a regular 6-sided dice. You can certainly use that. But this is a 9-sided dice, okay? So it's numbered 1 through 9. And it's left over from when I helped with Dungeons and Dragons role-playing games with my son when he was in high school. And I was the dungeon master. They had to have an adult with them at school to play. So I played, and it was great fun. I loved it. So I still have my dice, and this is what I'm going to use. And what I like about this, and I do it sometimes, is it brings in an element of chance, and it takes the guesswork and stress out of our painting, okay? So the idea is if I have a 9-sided dice, I'm going to choose 9 colors, all right? So if I look in my set, and you can choose any colors. If you have a 6-sided dice, you're going to choose 6 colors, okay? And so what I'll do is I think I'll just choose every other color. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay, or something like that. 9 colors. Whatever they are, it doesn't matter at all. And the idea is when we begin to paint, we roll the dice, and this one came up on 5, so I'll choose the 5th color if I lay them all out in front of me, and maybe I'll do that before I start painting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would be starting with a blue. Okay, so this does not matter, all right? Blue is sort of a good chance because I'm going to be painting a sky first, okay? So I'm going to paint, you could do anything. You could do an abstract work, all right? You could do a tiny landscape. It doesn't matter, all right, what your subject is. I'm going to do a landscape. And I'm going to do it in the vertical position. And so I'm going to go with my blue, and I'm going to get some blue on my brush, okay, and put it in one of these wells here. And actually what I think I'll do is I'll put the colors here. So here's 1. So I remember, all right? Here's 2. Here's 3. Here's 4. So this will be 5. Let me just swipe this up. Here's 6. It's like a darker blue. I don't need this. You can see better. You can see that. Here's 7. Here's 8. And I'll take this one for 9. And I'll just put it right here, okay? So I'm going to start with, because I rolled 5, I'm going to start with number 5. So I'll make sure I have plenty of my 5th color here, and I'll just add to it as I go. And I'm going to go ahead and put my sky on. Now, I often like to paint with 2 colors in the sky, so let me roll the dice again. 0 is not an option. So we'll just, I forgot it's actually a 10-sided. All right, so let me make 10. Let me see, I'll use burnt sienna for my 10th. Okay, so I'm going to make a mix between the blue and 10, which is burnt sienna. So I'm going to pick up the blue, all right, swipe through the burnt sienna a little bit, and I'm going to start putting the color down. So I'll pick up the blue, swipe through the burnt sienna, and put the color down. So you can see these are not the same as using artist grade paints. They're not going to be as strong, okay? And just sort of put some colors down to represent a sky. I just sort of clean up my edges. And then I add in a little bit more water. As we've seen many times when I do these tiny landscapes, I like to put water in to allow the pigments to dance around a little bit. Okay? So whatever two colors it lands on, that's what you use. And the beauty of this is that sometimes we end up with really surprising combinations that we would have never dreamt up if, if we weren't doing it this way. So it's a way to discover new ways of doing things, okay? So I've got my sky down. Now I'm going to start putting a field in. So I'll roll the dice again. And I have color 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's this color. So I'm going to use this to begin my field. And I'm just going to put some strokes in, leaving some white space. I'm going to roll the dice again. And I have number 9, which is this yellow color. So I'm going to add in a little yellow color of my color 9. I'm going to roll the dice again. Number 4. So it's this violet. So I'm going to add some of the violet in. So I've sort of built now. Okay, and I can add in a little bit more yellow. The yellow and violet are going to make a really beautiful neutral. Okay, so I've sort of built my background and my foreground just by rolling the dice. Okay, so now this is pretty wet, but I'm still going to roll my dice and I'm going to see what color the tree line will be. 8. So 8 is this red color. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, this red color. So I'm going to start with the red color. And it's pretty wet, so it's going to bloom a little bit. So I'll be conservative and keep it low. And just sort of drop in some of this red color. Okay? I'm going to roll again. 9 again. So 9 was this yellow. And I'm going to drop in some of that color right on top. Totally takes any thought process out of color, which is just a wonderful thing to do sometimes. Okay? Now, you notice that I left a little bit of light in between the tree and the field, and we're gonna put another layer on this, okay? So I'm going to leave that there just so they don't all run together. And that's the only reason. All right. So I'm going to let this dry and then we're going to come back and we're going to roll the dice again and we're going to do the same thing over again. And by layering these random choices of colors, we're going to get some really surprising effects. So I'm going to let this dry and then I will be back. Okay, so this is pretty dry. But before we begin again, I want to talk about the sky for a minute. So it was really fortuitous that that my dice rolled to blue, okay, and then I chose the burnt sienna for the other color. So what I suggest is two of the colors that you choose are blue and burnt sienna, or some kind of blue and orange, and then you can use those for your sky. and assign those colors numbers, right? And then you can go on with the rest of it just like I did with randomly choosing them. And that way you know your sky is gonna turn out well. And there's no guess in that. I mean, skies are often blue. So, or any two other colors that you would really like. Or you can just leave it to chance, which is sometimes really fun. I've done some amazing purple skies, green skies, yellow skies, red skies. So it's up to you. Okay? So now we're gonna move on, and I'm gonna just leave this, for the sky, I'm gonna leave it the two colors that I started with, okay? And I will often do that. Now I'm gonna pick up some more of this blue and make sure there's plenty of water in it. And then I'm gonna look at my sky and I'm gonna see where I might need to define it a little bit more with blue. So I can come up here and just use the tip of my brush and just sort of feather in a little bit more blue to give this cloud a little bit more definition. And just by using the tip of my brush, I get those feathery color, you know, the feathery outlines to the clouds like we like. See how I'm just sort of defining the cloud area. Just giving it a little bit more definition. Where there was already sort of a natural separation. Okay, so I think that's enough. I mean, I can put a little bit in here. There. So I like that. Okay, so it just defined my clouds a little bit more. Now down here, I'm going to leave them white and dreamy, okay? And I'm not going to add any more of the orange. I just wanted to define the cloud area a little bit. So now we're going to go back to our trees, okay? And we're going to do two colors again. Before we do that, I'm going to take just some clear water and just sort of go over the top area of my trees. All right, so it'll sort of give them a natural stopping point. All right, and then I'm gonna roll my dice. And so I got 8. So 8 is this red. So I'm gonna go back to the red, okay? And I'm gonna drop in more red. And you notice that I really diluted these colors. And by putting that water glaze a little bit on top, I'm giving that red a way to have a soft edge as I put it down again. It's not going to have a hard edge. It has some place to just sort of dissipate and spread. Okay, I'm going to roll my dice again. I have 8 again, so I'm going to roll it again. I don't want to do that twice. Gosh, it's all 8. 8. 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the violet color. So I'm going to go back to the violet color. Make sure I have plenty of water. All right. And drop in the violet color on top of the red. That's funny, I rolled 8 like 5 times. Okay, now you see that I've got a little bit of paint pooling here, so I just dry my brush off and stick the tip in and wick up any extra so it's not pooling and it doesn't take forever to dry. Okay, so now I have another layer on my trees, and I'm going to go underneath them and use the tip of my brush to just sort of soften that edge. Okay, and then I'm going to start with the fields. So I'm going to roll my dice again. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got the blue color. So I'm going to grab some of the blue. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. So I'm just going to take the blue and just sort of run it along the field, back and forth, to give myself a little bit of that color. Then I'm going to roll it again. 10, so that would be the burnt sienna color. And just sort of push it in back and forth like I did the first time. And I'm leaving a little bit of space here and there. Okay, look at these beautiful colors. Roll it again. Color number 1. So I'll go back here to my first color and use this one. See, I'm just kind of going back and forth in a diagonal. Okay, and then roll it again. I don't want to keep using the same color, so I'll just roll it. So I've got 1 again. I keep getting the same. 8. So 8 was this red. So I'm going to go back to the red that I used in the trees. And finish it off. Okay? So now we have 2 layers, all right? Our sky is what I would consider done, all right? But the field, I would like to put 1 more layer. I would like to do 3 layers. So once again, I'm gonna let this dry, okay? And then I'll be back to put on the final layer. Okay. So now we're gonna add 1 more layer to our trees and our fields, okay? So I'm going to wet my brush. I'm going to roll my dye. Well, first I'm going to use the clear water and just put down a little bit of water where it's been bleeding, so I get that soft edge. All right, roll my dice. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This sort of deep red. And I'm going to start adding in this red. And I know it's going to spread, so I'm sort of, I hold back a little bit. And then for the next color, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, the violet. So again, depending on what colors you choose, you're going to get different results every time. And these layers of colors will mix and mingle together and create just beautiful nuances. And on this final layer, I might go a little bit darker toward the bottom. So I'll put this violet down. And then maybe I'll add some more of that beautiful red. Oh, it's this one. Now, I also want to say at any time, if you feel like adding another color, you're free to do that, right? Boy, that's pretty. Just wicking up some of the extra water and then softening this lower tree line. And then we'll go on to the field. So I'm going to roll my dice. 10. So I go back to the burnt sienna. And I'm going to put in some of that. little bit more water. So we want to make sure we have water in these paints. The main reason is so that they're transparent. Next color is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the violet. Lots of water. Skipping around. Next color, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is this red color. And I'm skipping around, so I'm leaving some of those original colors to shine through. 1, so it's this teal color. And one more. 2, which is this green. There. Okay. So now I want to think about the horizon line. And I can do a couple things. I could get out some metallic paint and put a strip there. But I think I'm going to use a color from here. And I'm going to choose something that sort of would stand out. And this is sort of a red-violet. So I'm going to choose sort of a yellowish green, I think. Just so it stands out a little bit. I'm just going to take my watercolor pencil and just sort of fill in that area. Yeah, see, these are not great. I'm not happy with that. Can't do it. I don't have my other watercolor pencils around. So I am going to use some metallics. So let me find some. Let's see here. I'll use... I have a lot with me right now. Everything's in the other room. Let me see. I thought I had some metallic here, but I don't. Hold on. Okay. Here's some gold. It's an Arts by MCM gold. So I'm just going to take a little bit of metallic. Just drop it into that horizon line. Just to soften that area and give it some spark. Okay? And I can go back. If I feel like I need a little bit more depth, I can take some more of those colors that I had used and just drop in a little bit more here and there while it's still wet, just to give it some drama. And maybe even take a color that didn't get used, like this deep indigo, and drop in just a little bit of that here and there. To give it, we want to have some groundedness to that, okay? And I could also, since I didn't use it anywhere else, I could add a little bit in the foreground of that darker color that I added there, just to give the foreground of the field a little bit of drama. So how beautiful, right? All of these different layers of colors, just randomly chosen by the roll of a dice. Pretty fun. And the cool thing is, to me, is that every single time I do this, I can choose another 10 colors, right? And do it again. It's going to look different every time. All right, whether I use student grade or artist grade or handmade, it doesn't matter. The main thing is we want to make sure we have lots of water in our paint so it layers well, okay? And that we keep our sky simple, because if it was crazy psychedelic all over, it might not be as appealing. So no matter what two colors you start with in your sky, keep it simple, okay? So now we have this edge, right, of our paper. It's not a really neat process. So there's a couple things you can do. Before you can begin, you can tape your paper to a drawing board with washi tape, and then when you're done and it's dry, you can remove the tape and you'll have a nice clean border. Or I could take an X-Acto knife and cut the painting out. But because this paper has such beautiful edges, I really don't want to do that, all right? So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll use a metallic or some other color, and I'll paint the edges of the paper. So I'm going to do that. And that way we could just wrap this up, and it might take 2 layers of paint, but I can just paint the entire edge with a metallic paint. And it'll just give it a nice border, and that way I can either frame it like that. I could also mat it and frame it, and I can send it out to someone for a little twofold joy, right? For our dandelion lessons. Metallic paints, though, make beautiful borders on these papers with these deckled edges. I just love that. Okay. And I can just turn my painting to make it easier. Kind of tricky there. And it might even take 2 layers. So once this is dry, I could go over it again with another layer of metallic paint to really make it stand out. This particular one is on the transparent side. And so it doesn't have the covering power in one coat that I would like. It's beautiful in its transparency. And with 2 layers, it would be perfect. And one more edge. Just so you can sort of see the effect that it would have to give it a nice metallic border. And I only do this if it's this beautiful kind of paper with these deckled edges. If it wasn't, I would just trim the painting. I would just crop it. Okay. There we go. How lovely is that? Really, really fun. So I hope you will try this. I hope you will get out a wide variety of paints and just see what happens. Get out a dice, and however many sides your dice have, you'll choose that many colors. And every time, and if you're doing something like the trees and you roll the same color twice, then just roll it again to get a different color. All right? So this is just a fun project. It sort of brings play and the element of chance back into our work. And this is a super fun thing to do if we're feeling stuck, right? And we really don't, we don't feel like we have a lot of creativity that day or something. This is a really fun way to bring it back, okay? So I hope you'll try it. And I will be back in the next couple of days with our leaf project. So I'll give you time to get that drawing started. And we'll have fun with that. It'll be a lot of fun. All right, everybody. And I know Diana said she was going to try to find her own leaf, which is also fine. If you're really comfortable with your ability to draw a leaf and on your own make a line drawing and use your own colors and that kind of thing, that can be a great thing to do, and I highly encourage you to do that. But you have the reference photo if you want to follow along with me. But if not, any techniques that I share and the procedures that I share will work for any kind of leaf. Okay? All right, everybody, have a great day, and I can't wait to see what you do with this. It's going to be amazing to see them. So please, please share them on our community page. All right, take care. Bye-bye.